The Gospel of Mark. Lord of the Sabbath. Mark 2:23-28. Introduction. 1. As noted previously, the ministry of Jesus prompted close scrutiny by religious leaders. A. As when the scribes took issue with his claim to forgive sins. Mark 2:6-7. B. As when the scribes and Pharisees took issue with his dining with sinners. Mark 2:16. 2. One issue in particular produced a strong reaction, the Sabbath and its observance. A. At first, it involved Jesus' disciples plucking grain on the Sabbath. Mark 2:23-24. B. Later, Jesus would be criticized for healing on the Sabbath. Mark 3:1-2. 3. On the occasion involving Jesus' disciples plucking grain. A. The Pharisees said it was unlawful. Mark 2:24. B. Actually, it was contrary to rabbinical tradition, but not the law per se. It happened that he was going on the Sabbath day through the grain fields, and his disciples began, as they went, to pluck the ears of grain. The Pharisees said to him, Behold, why do they do that which is not lawful on the Sabbath day? Mark 2:23-24. 4. In answering the Pharisees, Jesus stated two notable things. A. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Mark 2:27. B. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Mark 2:28. He said to them, Did you never read what David did when he had need, and was hungry, he and they who were with him? How he entered into the house of God when Abiathar was high priest, and ate the showbread, which it is not lawful to eat except for the priests, and gave also to those who were with him. He said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Mark 2:25-28. 1. The Sabbath was made for man. A. The institution of the Sabbath. 1. The Sabbath was first commanded to Israel in the wilderness. Exodus 16:23-30. 2. It had previously been unknown to them. Nehemiah 9:14. 3. It was then codified in the Ten Commandments. Exodus 20:8-10. 4. As part of the covenant not given to the patriarchs, but to Israel. Deuteronomy 5:2-3. The Sabbath was not commanded by God until the time of Moses. B. The basis of the Sabbath. 1. Based on the fact that God himself rested on the seventh day. Exodus 20:11. 2. Inserted as a prolepsis by Moses in his Genesis account. Genesis 2:3. 3. Given to Israel as a special sign between them and God. Exodus 31:13-17. 4. Given to remind them of their slavery in Egypt. Deuteronomy 5:15. The Sabbath was given only to Israel as part of the law of Moses. 2. The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. A. With authority to interpret its use. 1. As the Son of Man, Jesus was complete and perfect manhood. A. Since the Sabbath was made for man, the Son of Man was rightly the Lord of the Sabbath. B. He could decide what was permissible or what was forbidden. 2. As the Son of God, ever one with the Father, he had given the Sabbath in the first place. John 1:1-2, 8:58, 10:30, 17:21, 3. Jesus demonstrated his lordship by the superiority of his reply to the Pharisees. A. Jesus first appealed to example of David and his men. Mark 2:25-26. 1 Samuel 21, 1-6. B. Matthew adds the example of priests working in the temple on the Sabbath. Matthew 12, 5. C. Note that Jesus appealed to Scripture to make his point. Have you never read 1. A higher law, where it conflicts with the lower one, suspends or limits the lower one at the point of conflict. Thus the higher laws of worship in the temple suspended the lower law of Sabbath observance, and thus also the higher law of mercy suspended the lower law as to the showbread when David took it and mercifully gave it to his hungry followers, and when God in mercy permitted this to be done. J. W. McGarvey. The Fourfold Gospel. 2. And thus, had they done what was otherwise unlawful, the disciples would have been justified in eating by the higher law of Christ's service. And thus also would Christ have been justified in permitting them to eat by the law of mercy, which was superior to that which rendered the seventh day to God as a sacrifice. I bid E. Thus by using Scripture Jesus effectively silenced their objection based on tradition. As Lord of the Sabbath, he had sovereign authority to interpret its use. B. With authority to rescind its use. 1. If he so willed, Jesus could discontinue the Sabbath requirement. Hebrews 1, 3. Upholding all things by the word of his power. 2. In fact, Jesus has brought the law of which the Sabbath was part to an end. A. Through his death on the cross. Ephesians 2:14-16. B. Having nailed it to the cross. Colossians 2:14. C. Jews who come to Christ die to the law. Romans 7:4-7. D. The Old Covenant has been replaced by the New Covenant. 2 Corinthians 3:6-11. Hebrews 8:6-13. 3. That Jesus ended the Sabbath requirement is evident. A. So let no one judge you in food or drink, or regarding Sabbaths. Colossians 2:16. B. One person esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let each be fully convinced in his own mind. Romans 14:5. C. Thus Christians assemble on the first day of the week to worship. Acts 20:7. 1 Corinthians 16:1-2. As Lord of the Sabbath, he has chosen to rescind its use. Conclusion. 1. Controversy over the observance of the Sabbath has been around for a long time. A. The manner of its observance was a major issue during Jesus' ministry. B. The need for its observance is still questioned by some today. 2. But when we pay close attention to the teaching of the Lord of the Sabbath, A. We will reach conclusions based on Scripture rather than tradition. B. We will find that the Lord who ordained the Sabbath has rescinded its use. While we appreciate the role of the Sabbath in Israel's history, let us be sure that it is the Lord of the Sabbath that we worship, and not the Sabbath itself. The end. The Gospel of Mark. Lord of the Sabbath. Mark 2:23-28.